find the CIA's fingerprints all over these operations.
Absolutely. Stay there. Back in 1 minute. Final segment with Wayne Madsen. Then your calls. Then a ton of news. Stay with us. Already into hour number 3. We're talking to Wayne Madsen. Wayne Madsen continuing looking at where the world's going. Are things going good for the big mega banks, the cartel operators? Yeah, they're taking over Europe. They're imploding sovereignty everywhere. They've got the Congress here passing laws to put the military on the streets. But as the economy falls apart, more people are undoubtedly waking up. I guess what I'm getting at is, are things going well for them overall, though? Or have they bitten off more than they can chew?
Well, I think what we're seeing now with these street demonstrations popping up, even in small towns in the United States and, of course, around the world, I think the powers, the elites, are worried about people making common cause with one another. Obviously, we know that what's happening in London is being followed by the people in New York and other places who are out there demonstrating. But now we have the City of London police coming out with internal documents stating that the Occupy London people are terrorists. And we know that what happened just here in the United States with the Congress passing this Defense Appropriation Act with this rider stating that people can be picked up in this country by the military and thrown in some stockade somewhere, or some Navy brig, and never see the light of day if they're deemed to be terrorists. I think these are all indications that the elites are worried about the mass movement of the people on the street, and they're going to do everything in their power to try to stop it. But and
by the way, Wayne, you're not just saying that. We ran headlines yesterday out of England where they list protesters as terrorists, and then we got the memos that are public now saying anybody protesting is a, quote, low-level terrorist.
Right, and here's my fear, though. My fear is what's happening with the U.S. Postal Service. Remember, the post office was the feather in the cap of one of our founders, Benjamin Franklin, who created the postal service, and now it's in danger of collapsing because of the fraud of the Congress and the fraud of the administrators, and the people have been just pulling the money in what had been a flush system out of that system, and now they're saying it's bankrupt. And when you go to small town America, sometimes the only interaction an American citizen has with the federal government is when they go to that local small post office. And if that disappears, I think we could be seeing these protests sweep across the country in what I would call a sagebrush rebellion. And I think if that happens, we're going to see a lot of people in places like Kansas and Oklahoma. Maybe they haven't been real supportive of what's happening in New York and L.A. and San Francisco and Oakland and other places, but I think they would then realize, why do we need the government when my grandma can't get her Social Security check anymore? We got to drive 70 miles to a post office because our mail service has been discontinued. And I also think the other part of this, I've always thought about what happens if they take over the Internet. Well, in my case, I have the people who subscribe to my website, in many cases I have their mailing address. Now, I could easily go to paper and send the Wayne Madsen Report, not .com, but, basically, a Xerox copy out to them through the mail. But if the Postal Service is disrupted and it's privatized and it's handled by FedEx, where it becomes cost prohibitive, then where are we at? We have no backup. We have no backup to the Internet.
Well, that's where it's all moving, is the post-industrial world. Wayne Madsen, thank you so much for spending time with us, and I look forward to speaking to you in the near future.
You bet.
There goes Wayne. Okay, I'm going to get to a smattering of your calls straight ahead. I'm going to briefly get into the collapsing society, the post-industrial world, since Wayne was just raising it. Don't have time to make the point now. Then we'll get to the Colbert Report. Okay, coming up, I'm going to play some clips from the Colbert Report on Comedy Central, where they demonize myself and former Minnesota Governor Jesse Ventura last night. It's very entertaining. It's very funny, but it's also very deceptive. So I want to play it and then kind of decipher the different layers of brainwashing that are going on here politically. But before I go any further, Wayne Madsen was just mentioning the collapse of society. They're talking about getting rid of Saturday delivery, getting rid of many of the different options at the post office, maybe getting rid of it entirely. And my issue with that is, why are all the services going away now? I was reading reports where all over the country, police aren't responding now, in the case of Oakland, to 35 crimes, including aggravated assault, things like that. I saw reports where police all over the country are saying they're going to have to charge you now if you want them to help lead your motorcade so you don't block traffic and things when you drive your family member in the hearse to the cemetery to bury them. Why could we always have that and now we can't? It's funny. They write more tickets. The taxes are up. The revenue's up. The gas tax is always bigger. And they say, oh, we want to put a satellite tracker box in there and tax you now because we don't get enough revenue. Then you go, look, they're getting more revenue. It's because it's globalism. It's a plan. It's a post-industrial world. The vast majority of your tax money is siphoned off to pay for the derivatives that the federal government signed on to. Not our debt. And it's the same in every other country. The only country to say no are the Icelanders. The Icelandic nation said no for over a year. They said, we're going to sue you. Your government's going to implode. England's going to list everybody in Iceland, all 400,000 of them, as terrorists. You won't be able to fly out of the country. All a bluff. They said, oh, 92%, or was it 93? 90+% of the money is owed actually by the very banks that were threatening you. Will you pay the 8%? And Iceland said, yeah, we'll pay that. It was going to be hundreds of thousands of dollars per person of debt they didn't owe. They didn't owe it. They say, well, Europe's in trouble because they get a month of vacation a year. They're lazy in Europe. No, they're not. No, they're not. No, they're not. We're not lazy. There's some lazy people on welfare that are Democratic voters, basically. And you got all the people on corporate welfare that are Republicans. But the majority of Americans, in fact, they've done international studies, work more than anybody. The average American works something like 12, 13 hours a day, 6 days a week. I know I do. The average American has more than one job. We have one of the highest rates of our women working in this country. Just 50 years ago, worldwide, most women didn't work. That was a luxury to not have to work. It was a good thing to take care of the home and take care of the children. That's important. Daddy had to go work in the factory and get his arm caught in the machinery or run the combine. Mama didn't have to. Now, in the Depression, Mama had to get out there and work. The point is that we've been taught this is all a great thing. I saw numbers last night in Bloomberg where they're calling it a man session because the men are having the really bad depression. All designed, folks. All designed. All right, I'm going to go to your calls. I'm going to go to Joe, and then Lyndon, and then Ivan, and then Otter, and everybody else that's holding. It's just that all the services go out the window. The taxes go up. You get pulled over. They nickel and dime you for tickets. And they tell the cops, it's come out, we're going to go bankrupt and lay all of you off if you don't have these quotas. And then that money at the county and city level with the city managers, crooks, pretty much all of them, the vast majority, they've been investing it generally in more than 70%, some numbers are more than 80, in the comprehensive annual financial report. That's the real set of books. You're always told about budget, budget, budget. That'd be like if I made $100,000 a year and I told my wife, honey, our budget's only $40,000. And I tricked her, hypothetically, to think $40,000 was everything we made. Because I said budget, budget, budget. Meanwhile, I'm pocketing $60,000 and have got a whole other family across town with 5 kids. That's basically, and the Chicago Mafia developed this. It's called the 1313. They had it by the 20s. It was adopted by the Federal Reserve in 1947. The National Security Act was meant to back it up. And they set this up where they get the city council people and the city managers, the city councils doesn't know what they're doing. They fly them around, bamboozle them, promise them we'll give your wife, your husband a job. you know, when you get out, or we'll give you a good property deal. Just let the city manager be in there. And the city manager takes that money and invests it in the stock market. Not your pension, no, that's on budget. And then they swindled all that in the derivative. Remember 10 years ago, we talked about how they had enough money to not pay any taxes ever again and pay every American dividends like they do in Alaska or like they do for Native Americans. The wealth is so great that you could live off of it, get a huge dividend, not ever have to pay taxes again. Many people could just retire at like age 55, the numbers showed. Not anymore. They stole it all. The globalists admit their job's to destroy wealth. Their job's to destroy businesses. Their job with the IRS is to shut down the country. NAFTA and GATT shut down the country because liberty and the engine of freedom and the engine for human desire is so great, we'd all live like kings, and then we wouldn't need government. They want to keep you on a tiny welfare check, living in a hovel with CPS workers feeding on you, putting your kids on drugs, and then putting them in prison later. To go to college in prison to learn how to come out and deal drugs and rob houses. That's a college, crime college. They've got it all figured out in social engineering, and I, for one, am tired of it. So I read about S&P downgrade threat, a clarion call for Euro reform. And they're saying, raise your taxes, cut all your benefits, pay everything to the private banks, or we'll cut your debt rating even more. The very groups that created the debt. But the public is so ignorant, and the media won't tell them that. Here's another one. Anxious Greeks emptying their bank accounts. Der Spiegel. It's already starting here. Bank runs are down the road if this continues. This article, again, is up at Drudge Report. It's also up at Infowars.com right now. And I'm going to cover this on the Nightly News this evening because bank runs are the real deal. In fact, I'm going to have a news package done. I was going to send Darren McBreen out on cloning. I think I'm going to go out and do some out on the street too soon, but I'll be so busy. I want to go out and ask folks about bank run. Would they ever take their money out of the account? What do they think of folks that are doing it? What do they think of banks that try to give people their money back? That's what we need to cover. Okay, let's go to your calls. It's just that our system's rotting, and it's by design, and it's not going to get better. People always say, well, the politicians are trying to fix it, but they're too dumb. Oh, Newt Gingrich will fix it, or Donald Trump will. It's not that the government doesn't know how to fix it. It's working just fine. The top 1% get richer and richer, and then they're going to sick the lower classes, the working classes, on what's left of the middle class, saying, get them rich people. Oldest trick in the book. Pressure from above and below. Joe in Texas, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Hey, God bless you, Alex, and your reporting, your reporters, and all you do.
Well, thank you, sir.
I'm calling out. Just want to make a quick comment and then ask a question and listen off air. My comment was I had heard you talk a while back about the private property issue and game wardens coming on your property during the hunting thing, and I just wanted to suggest, as I do on my gate, just state or you can go down to a print shop and get you a cheap sign. It says, this property protected by SB, State Bill 378. And just wear a firearm in your life and on your property. And my question was...
Now, to show my ignorance, tell me about that bill.
It's a Texas Castle Law, State Bill 378.
Oh, sure, the Castle Law. Yeah, saying anybody comes on your property without a warrant, bye-bye. Well, I mean, here's the deal. It's not even, it's my dad's property. I guess it's mine. The point is, it's an old family ranch out in East Texas, and my family's been there forever. Had family worked at the county and stuff. I'm not going to get into the whole story. And you're constantly harassed. I mean, I've told the story of my dad, taking his uncle who was dying of pancreatic cancer. He's dead now. Last time he hunted, taking his deer, state police flipping out, threatening him, grabbing guns out. And they're like, it's legal for the landowner to transport the deer. No, it's not. Shut up. And then now the game warden is showing up and, wanting to go in buildings and stuff. And it's not America. Being pulled over by the state police and them wanting to search my car and checking my tent and asking me questions. It's not freedom. Get out of my life. I'm not a drug dealer like your government. I'm sorry. I'm not a criminal. You are. Get out of my face. I mean, you see what I'm sorry. Go ahead. You had a question.
You're correct, Alex. And my question was, what is your opinion on